Fruitful Living with Sissel Anderson. Here on Morning Joy, where truth matters.
Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey. And on this edition of Fruitful Living, we're talking about feeling unqualified to do whatever God has set before us. And to talk more about that, we've got Sissel Anderson. Good morning, Sissel.
Good morning, Keith. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, this is a very interesting topic.
Yes, it is. I don't know. I was going to ask you off, just like, I feel like it's an obligatory question to ask you. Have you ever felt unqualified to do something that God has put before you? But I kind of also feel like I might know the answer to this one.
Yes, I feel like all the time. I feel very unqualified for pretty much everything regarding like my role as a father, sometimes as a husband. But I understand that, practice takes, I forgot what the, who was it, Debbie or Adam says practice takes something. I can't remember, but yeah.
Something wise and good that they said.
Yeah, long story short, yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're on the same page, because it'd be kind of awkward if I was the only one struggling with this and you were just sitting there like, I don't know what you're talking about. No, but I think a good portion of everyone listening right now has experienced this at one point in their life. If they haven't yet, they will at some point in time. More often than not, something is put before us. God has put something before us, whether it be with our vocations and our families, or just, tasks that He's put before us. And we're like, I don't understand why we, of all people, have been called to do this. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. And this topic came to my mind because of something that happened recently, and that made me, it's just something that was unrelated to the faith, although all things are related to the faith, so it kind of was. But at my house, we had these 4 trees in our backyard, 4 little crepe myrtles that were not doing super well, and they were attracting a lot of wasps, and we just decided we didn't like the placement of them. We decided to get rid of them. And of course, being the DIY people that we were like, we will get rid of them ourselves. It'll be fine. They're small trees. What could possibly go wrong? Terrible mindset to have, by the way. So we had a Saturday afternoon. We're a couple of roommates of mine, and I only had about an hour before we had to get ready for mass, basically, to take these trees down. And we're terrible planners. So we realized that our battery for our electric saw wasn't fully charged, but we thought, well, surely we can get through it. We touched the tree and it immediately died. And we're like, well, that's really unfortunate, but we were determined to still get those trees out. And so thankfully, I went through a Bob the Builder phase when I was about 4 years old.
I think we might have lost audio there. Sissel was just... Oh, there we go. Can you hear us, Sissel?
Did you lose me? Hello?
There we go. We got you.
Perfect. Where did you lose me?
You're talking about Bob the Builder. You had a phase of that.
Bob the Builder, yes. I was gifted a toolkit from my parents, and it included a lot of tiny little tools that are not that handy. And one of them was a 6-inch saw. Handsaw, 6-inch handsaw that was immediately confiscated because as soon as I opened up the present, started trying to saw our coffee table. Needless to say, my parents were not super impressed with that, so it was taken away. But somehow over the many years, it still stayed in our moved several times. It came with us. And so in this moment when our other saw was not working, I was like, we have this little handsaw. I know it sounds really silly, but let me go grab it and see if it'll work. And by the grace of God, I was actually able to take down several trees with this tiny little handsaw. And you're thinking, it's a plastic handle. It is so beat up. It's not made to do this for sure, but it still managed to happen. And it just made me sit there going, man, this is what I feel like all the time. I feel like I'm this little handsaw that's not ever going to be able to be used to do anything of use. But at the end of the day, I realized it wasn't the handsaw that did it. It was me being able to utilize the handsaw well with the strength that I had, with the minimal knowledge I have about taking down trees, but the knowledge that I had to be able to take down this tree, I was able to utilize it past the potential that everyone would assume that it would have. And I was like, whoa, it's just like how God uses us. I am the little handsaw. And it was just something really beautiful because, again, we all go through these times where we're just like, Lord, I don't understand why you have called me to do this. I don't feel qualified. And so there's a few things I thought would be important to kind of talk about. namely is that first, you're not alone in this. I need to like reiterate that almost every Bible character you could think about, every saint you could think about at some point in their lives probably felt unqualified to do what the big task that God had put before them. It's a couple biblical characters that come to my mind immediately are Moses. Moses was very much like, please, Lord, he asked God so many times, like, this is not for me. Like, I forgive your servant, but please choose someone else. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at speaking. I don't want to speak in front of everyone. I'm uncomfortable with this. Please choose someone else. But then look what God was able to do with Moses. He was able to use Moses to help lead his people from the captivity of the Egyptians and able to go out to get into the promised land. I mean, it's crazy to think about that this man was like, please don't give this to me. And then someone else who's very topical today is our Saint Joseph. I'm sure there's many times that he was like, Lord, he was going to say like, okay, I'm going to just, divorce Mary quietly, let her go about that's her God thing. I'm going to step back. And God's like, no. I need you for this too. I need you to be the earthly father of my son. And just wow, how crazy that is. But I think it's really important, Keith, that there's something you have to think about when it comes to God using us, is that remember that he is using us and our job is simply to be standing at the ready to do so. It is not us. All the good things that God does through us is God. And I think if we take out I don't want to say responsibility, because obviously there's a responsibility of us being ready and open, but at the end of the day, it all comes from God. And so if we take our egos out of it, it becomes less fearful, because we become very afraid when we're trying to control everything. We get very afraid when God's like, he calls you to do something and it seems big and enormous. And we sit there going, there's no way I could do this. And you're like, yeah, no, duh. Like, of course we can't do it because it's not us that's doing it. It's God. We just have to be open and able to accept God's will for us. And I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but that was just something that it made me think about, is that more often than not, the thing that paralyzes us from doing God's will is because we are putting it in our hands, like that all of it is our responsibility. And it's so not. And so, yes, is it going to be hard? Of course. But I would say be not afraid, because we are beautifully and uniquely crafted by God. We are these beautiful tools that God has created to be able to do his will. But at the end of the day, it's his will. We just have to be open and ready.
Interesting. Yeah. So, the imposter syndrome is just similar to what we're talking about. Kind of, I mean, I don't want to say for those experiencing this imposter syndrome, quote unquote, means you have lack of trust in our Lord's will, but maybe it just means we need to focus on that a little bit more, that we shouldn't be trying to take on these things all by ourselves. We really do. And it always goes back to this. We really need to get back to our a very good, solid prayer routine and having that constant, consistent conversation with God.
Yes, indeed. Basically, to just summarize it, Jesus said to Saint Angela, can't remember her full title, Saint Angela, that we need to make ourselves a capacity, and I will make myself a torrent. So our job is simply to ready ourselves. And like you're mentioning, Keith, be praying daily, because it's really hard for us to know what God is calling us to do. We sometimes just think that something, sometimes we have these impulses and we're like, that's exactly what we need to do. But some things actually take some discernment. And just because we feel this impulse to do something, you do actually have to have that established prayer life for you able to have prudence and say, this is actually the right course of action to take at the right time. And so that you are able then to be used to do great things for our Lord. And hopefully we can then join our wonderful saintly friends who have done all these amazing things over the years. And they were only able to do it when they recognized that it wasn't them, that it was God, that they'd emptied themselves and were just being used. Basically, we all need to be little handsaws for the Lord. Let him use the strength. If someone's going to be tuning in right now and just hear, why am I being a handsaw for the Lord? It's because it was used for a job that seemed way beyond its capacity, but the power behind it is something that was able to accomplish it.
Wow, that's such a good metaphor, being a plastic handsaw. Or plastic, yeah. Going back to St. Joseph, it reminds me, St. Joseph, I mean, he was a lowly carpenter. He wasn't like making big time money. They were poor. Like, and so I think sometimes we forget that some of the most impactful people in the Catholic faith, like, all the saints, like a lot of them, I mean, they come from just very, poor backgrounds, whether it's monetary or not. So for me, it's a little bit inspiring because, obviously none of the saints are perfect. And so it means that we have a chance.
Yes. And it's been said many times before, but there's the phrase that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And so if we walk into whatever God is calling us to, expecting that we should be ready at that moment, that we should have all the tools necessary, that we should be able to handle everything, that's kind of a foolish thing to think about, because all of these saints, all of the biblical characters that were called to do something great, definitely when they showed up, were flawed, were messy, were like they had no idea what they were doing. And so it's something that we all will grow and learn from. But then recognizing that God fills in the gaps and that he will draw us out of all of that to use us for what he needs to have done.
That's right. Well said. And by the way, the phrase was practice makes permanence. So thank you, Debbie Georgiani, for coining that term. Make sure to use that, especially when it comes to your prayer life. Practice makes permanent. But my goodness, thank you so much, Sissel, for joining us once again, breaking that down and making us feel a little bit better this morning when it comes to feeling qualified for whatever God has set before us. We can also find you on Back to the Father. That's Friday afternoons, 1 p.m. Central on GRN Online YouTube. She's the producer of it. It's a great show. Dives into St. Thomas Aquinas and the Summa. And that is it for the end of our very first hour of Morning Joy, where truth matters. If you are unable to stick around with us right after this quick little break, we'll actually have the second hour ready for you, ready to go, either on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube/Rumble. So for those leaving, we'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern. And don't forget, make it a joyful day. If you're hanging with us, stay there. We're going to be joined by Joseph Rulli, incredible author. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on Morning Joy, where truth matters.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.